Hello everyone, welcome to our channel BISP Solution. So in today's session we are going to discuss about the security. So let's start with the role-based model in the HCM security. So basically all the security part we perform in the security console option. So let's just start with this role-based security model. So a role-based security model control or RBAC is a way of restricting system access to authorized user, or user are assigned roles through which they gain access to functions and data within the application. Each role is a collection of permissions for the users to perform specific tasks, and roles are assigned to users, not the user ID. So the user acquire permission to perform tasks via their roles. So RBAC, role based access control, is an international standard signed on by all the signatory of the United Nations, and it has a follow on or a standard in the United States as a part of that. Okay, so the International Committee for Information Technology Standard, or INCITS, is INCIT 3592012. When a user signs on, all the users' roles are active concurrently. They don't have to select a role when they sign in, but the roles are categorized. So you will see them listed in categories so that the users can have access to whatever function and data those category and their content provide. So role-based access control, the roles determine which data and what function the person who has those role can perform. These are just some examples. Don't think of this as a being everything there is. If the role provision is line manager, then the person who has that role can create performance document for workers in their reporting hierarchies. Okay, they can only take care of their direct or indirect report. They can't do anything for other manager stuff. If the role is employee, then whoever has that employee role can view their payslip, but only for themselves. They are restricted from looking at any other payslip other than the ones that belongs to them. If the role is a payrolls manager, then that role allows the payroll manager to report on payroll balances, but only for the roles that they are allowed, only for specific rules. And a human resource specialist can transfer employees, but only for people in their specified organization, only for people that they are directly responsible for. Okay, so the data will not allow them to step outside that boundary. When you think of a role and you think of what it's providing, you think of the who, what, and which data. Okay, so now which data part is defining by the security role, or we can say the security profiles. So Oracle does provide predefined role. We call it the security reference implementations. So you can review the details of any Oracle provide role in that security reference. It's available in the Oracle document library, and we will see roles that are provided for human capital management are directly associated with human capital management, although Oracle does provide for some what are called the common roles. In the security environment, there are roles that can reach across offering boundaries, and those roles, they are kind of a special, but those roles have the ability to move from human capital management to ERP or sales cloud and the other than. They can move back and forth based on the roles that are provisioned, and a user can fulfill different roles across application. If that's, we call it multi-head or multitasking type stuff, and it allow them because they have the provision roles to work in different cloud offerings. Okay, then we have here the role types. So, role type in human capital management, the data roles, abstract roles, job roles, aggregate privileges, and duty roles. Now, remember the data roles are unique to human capital management. All of the other exist across the cloud offering. Okay, that part is not unique to human capital management, but data roles are. So abstract roles don't provide job capability. Abstract roles are roles that allow a user to fit into their position in the enterprise. If they are an employee, they can do the work that everyone expects of every employee. So if there is a contractor, they do get the contingent role, the contingent worker role, and they could do the work that is expected of every contractor. Things like entering a time card, right? So in this case of employee, creating an expense report, those are things you do because you are an employee of the enterprise, not because of your job as a human resource specialist or a programmer. So those are a part of the job. They are just things you do because you are a part of that enterprise. Okay, so let's see one by one. First we are going to see here the data roles. So data roles are a combination of a worker's job and the data instance that users with the role need to access. Okay, so a data role is what combines for a human capital management workers, the functions they need to perform their job and the data they need to perform their job. Now remember, in the role-based access control standard, those are two completely separate things. Okay, just because you have a function doesn't mean you can look at data. For example, the human capital management data role of a payroll administrator, payroll US, combines a job role, payroll administrator, with a data scope. So anything having to do with payroll US, these are not delivered as a part of the security reference implementation, but are always locally defined by the enterprise. Okay, so now there is a reason for that. The data role security profile use the enterprise definition of the enterprise as their data references. Okay, so when you create your enterprise structure, your organizational structure, your legislative data group. So where you work in the world, your business unit, things like marketing and sales and IT and all of those business unit, stuff like that. Okay, so when we create the security profile, we use that definitions, but Oracle cannot create that definition for you. As an enterprise worker, you create your enterprise definition as a part of the cloud application implementation. So until that is done, you cannot create data role. Okay, so data role are provisioned directly to user so that user can perform the work that the data role represents. Moving ahead, we have the abstract role. So abstract role represent a worker's role in the enterprise. This is independent of their jobs. The worker is hired to do a job, but until they are given that job, they are an employee or they are a contingent worker or something. So an abstract role allow them to do the things because of their position in the enterprise, independent of the job that they are hired to do, because of workers may do 2 or 3 different jobs and they may require different job roles to do those jobs, but they are always an employee. 3 main delivered abstract role are, these are delivered by the Oracle, our employee, and line manager and contingent worker. And pretty much every time I talk about abstract role, I will reference one of those three, maybe more. You can create your own custom abstract role, just remember what they are for. Okay, so there are not so a worker can do their job, they are so then can perform the expectation of the enterprise based on the type of worker they are. You cannot modify Oracle's predefined abstract roles, but you will find out that you can copy those and then modify the copy and use it in place of the Oracle provided. And we will see this. So you assign abstract role directly to the user, and abstract role typically have the same set of security. So for example, an employee abstract role has a security applied to it. Okay, so that lets every provision employee take care of their own data. Now they can't give themselves a raise in a pay, they cannot give themselves a promotion, not that kind of stuff like that. Okay, but if they get a new phone number, they can change their telephone number. If they need to do a time card, they can enter that time card. If they need to create an expense report, they can create an expense report, because that's what we expect of all employee of the enterprise. That's what we want to do, right? To them. So, and as long as they they can do it, somebody else does not have to do it for them. Okay, so that's why we create the abstract roles. Then we have the job role. So job role align with the job that a worker is hired to perform. The job role is what gives the worker the ability to perform the tasks that are expected of them based on their jobs. So a human resource analyst or a payroll manager are example of predefined job role. So you cannot modify a predefined job role, just like you cannot modify a predefined abstract role, but again you can make a copy of that predefined role and make changes to the copy, and then the use copy in a place of the Oracle provided role. Okay, as a matter of fact, this is probably the first of many times you will hear this. Oracle highly recommended that you do not provision Oracle provided rules directly to the user. That's not what Oracle expect you to do with them. We expect to analyze your enterprise jobs, compare that analysis to what the job roles that Oracle provides bring to them. And anything that Oracle has that you don't want, you should customize away. Make a copy of job role and remove the privilege that you don't want your users to have. If there is a privilege want them to have that Oracle does not provide, then you can modify that custom role and add that privilege to it. We typically don't want you provision Oracle provided roles directly to user. That's not what Oracle expect you to use them for. So you include job role in human capital management data role, and it's the data role that we provision to user. Typically in human capital management, we don't provision job roles directly. So it's not that you can't it's just that we use the data role to provide the security access. So a few specialized job roles do not require data access that is provided by human capital management role. These can be assigned directly to the users because these job roles inherit their security access from the data roles that are provisioned. So remember, it's an inheritance hierarchy. So those data access and those function privileges are inherited across the board, not just in the data role or the job role we are talking about here. Okay, moving ahead with the aggregate privilege here. So aggregate privilege combine a single function security privilege with one or more data security policies. You can use the aggregate privileges. All of them are predefined. You cannot create these as a building blocks of custom job and abstract roles. You cannot create, edit, copy or delete an aggregate privilege. So maybe I'll tell you why before we get done with here, but you have to use them as a supplied. An aggregate privilege has the same name as the function security privilege that it delivers. So if there is a function privilege within aggregate privilege, the aggregate privilege has the same name. So some example of aggregate privilege are maintain position, maintain absence record, maintain manage time card and access payroll dashboards, stuff like that. Okay, so remember they are inherited by the job and the abstract role and can also be inherited by the duty roles, but they cannot inherit other roles themselves or even other aggregate privileges. So they are unique and built by the Oracle. You have to use them the way Oracle delivers them. They cannot be assigned directly to the user. They have to be placed into an inheritance hierarchy as a part of the role inheritance. So an aggregate privilege can go to a duty role, an aggregate privilege can go to a job role, but an aggregate privilege cannot go directly to a user and they cannot go directly to the data role unless the job role that's used to create the data role carries it. Okay, so now the reason that you cannot create aggregate privilege, and by the way you cannot create function privilege either, the reason why you cannot create them is they are created at the time to controlled object is created. A function privilege is created when the web page that need it is created, and then when that web page is deployed, the function privilege is deployed with it. It is the only function privilege you can use to run that page. So it doesn't make any sense to ask you to create another one. You already have one. Use it wherever you need to. Okay, so aggregate privilege simplify adds the data security to that function privilege, so that if you have access to that aggregate privilege through inheritance, you have access to the data as well, but they are created at the time the controlled object is. So created the web page, the task flow, stuff like that, and so it doesn't make any sense for the enterprise to be able to create their own privilege because they can't create their own pages. Okay, so moving ahead, our next role. So duty role represent a set of privilege that are granted together. They can carry multiple privileges as a function or aggregate, and remember they can inherit other duty roles. Along with the duty roles privilege are the duty role data security policies. So as they inherit, the privilege and data security policies are inherited into the hierarchy. Okay, so the inheritance hierarchy, some are delivered as a part of the security reference implementation. These predefined duty rules represent what Oracle feels is logically grouping of privilege that can be managed as a group. So now you may not think so, what Oracle build you may not like, so you can create your own custom duty roles. This is the first place you can customize a role, and by the way we don't expect you to do much of that. So you cannot modify Oracle's predefined duty rule, but again you can make a copy of a predefined duty rule with your own name that creates a custom duty rule. Then you can modify the custom duty rule and use it in place of the predefined duty rule. Okay. Okay, so here you can see this example. It includes two different roles here, right? The data roles and the abstract roles. Okay, so the abstract role of employee, Lindsay Allen is an employee, or she will not have that role. And Lindsay Allen also is a human resource specialist for the Vision Corporation. Okay, so within the abstract role of employee, she has a security profile that says she can view her own data. Now, what does that mean is, well, she can change her address by herself. She doesn't need anybody to help her to do that. She can work within time and labor as person who needs to. For example, enter a time card. She can view her own payslip, but because she can only view her own record, she cannot look at anyone else's payslip. So can only look at her own. And notice the duty rules has inherited the aggregate privilege of workers time card entry. And that's why I have just stated that Lindsay can enter her own time card again. She doesn't need any help from anyone to do that. She can just put it in. The data role for human resources specialist Vision Corporation has a set of security profile that limits the data Lindsay can see to anything within the Vision Corporation. So the human resources specialist will allow her to create work relationship for anyone within the Vision Corporation. Okay, so she can create work relationship. She can do the person management, which include viewing a person address. Now this is not hers, that's handled over by the employee role, but she can view the person's address of anyone within the Vision Corporation for whom she is responsible. And she has another duty role that allow her to work with the person national identifier. Okay, and the personal national identifier is that set of document that usually an enterprise require that proves a person is allowed to work for them in wherever they are in the world. So it could be, if it's in the US, it could be a green card or a work permit. It could be a social security card. It could be a national ID type card. So where we are in the world, that's required. And she has the ability to manage salaries because she has an aggregate privilege that lets her manage salary now. So this is a very special instance. She can manage salaries for anyone in Vision Corporation except herself. So Lindsay cannot manage her own salary. That is an exclusion to that access because we don't want Lindsay being able to give herself raise, right? So that has to come from the somewhere else. So this is an example, probably a more workable example of a role inheritance hierarchy, but again this is a very small sample of what this is actually look like. Okay, so moving ahead, we have the security privilege. So security privilege that promotes workers aggregate privilege. Notice we have the aggregate privilege of promote worker, right, and is associated with the one function privilege. Okay, so the promote workers, but if must have two data security profile. The first one allow for the searching of a worker who needs the promotion. So we can use the promote worker page to search for the worker that needs a promotion, and then we have a data security policy that allow the promoted data to be applied to the workers so they can have their promotion. Okay, so two data security policies, by the way, that's not even an image limit, and one function privilege, always one function privilege, and aggregate privilege can only have one function privilege. And notice the aggregate privilege and the function security privilege have the same name, different type of privilege, but they have the same name. Okay, so let's move ahead. We have the security console. Okay, so benefit of the security console It provides a single global view of users, roles, and privileges. It does allow you to visualize roles hierarchy within reason, where we will address that when the time comes, and you can focus on areas of interest, makes it easier for you to configure security to suit to business needs. You can use the simulate navigator function to see exactly what a user will see in their navigator menu, and you can copy predefined rules and edit the copies. Now again, I think we have said this before, but I'll say it now just in case. You cannot edit anything Oracle gives you, and that includes roles. Okay, the seeded roles that Oracle has given are protected. You can either provision them as is. We do not recommend it that, because they probably give more access than what the user community requires. Or you can use them as seeds. Make a copy of them and then edit the copy to create the roles you actually need, and that is what we recommend. That's the way we would want you to use those predefined roles. So you can create abstract roles and job roles in interactively by building the job role hierarchy from scratch. I do not recommend that unless the role is very simple to build. It takes a lot of work to put a complex role together, and it may take more time than what you wish to take. So if you can find a role that Oracle provided that is very close to what you need, then make a copy of that role, edit it and adjust, either adding or removing function privilege, so that the role works the way you want it to, and would be what I would recommend for creating any new roles. Let's see what are the feature in the security console option. So the feature of the security console, we have the ability to use assisted search. As you are searching for something and you start typing, it will read the letters you type after you have typed about 3 and start showing you suggested solutions. So obviously the more you type, the fewer will be in the list until you finally see the one you want. Once you can see the one you want, stop typing and just click on the role and it will comes up. So visualization is the graphic depletion of roles or user provision role based on user or role selection. For the most part, this is a useful tool, but just understand there is a limitation to it. It will help you understand that when we look at the demonstration. So navigator simulation allow you to look at the menu from the basis of what the role would provided. You simply select a role and ask to simulate the navigator using that role. It will show you what access to the menu the role will provide. So role copy is how we would copy a role, so that we could create a copy we can edit. Okay, so you can copy any role. So even if it's a custom role and you want to make a different type or different custom role, then you can copy an already created custom role and then make changes to that as well. So you can review role assignments, you can create your own roles, you can do certificate management, and there are analytics. There is an analytics section to the security console that will provide analytics for the roles. All of these are useful capabilities. Okay, let's see one by one. First we are going to see the assisted search. So when you search in the security console, the result includes security artifacts of all relevant types, be the user, roles or privileges. Now you can select what you want to see using the search box. Notice here in the slide. Okay, so the search box shows where searching for the job role, duty roles, abstract role, and the others role also. So, and we will see the list accordingly where you can change the content of this search definition. Simply click the drop down and highlight or unhighlight, uncheck the boxes if you will. One of the you don't want to see, and they will no longer be presented. Okay, moving ahead, we have the visualizations. So the visualization area of the security console, if you are looking at roles graphically or user graphically, will display everything as a kind of a star picture. So the point end of the arrows point to inherit roles or privileges, and it will show one layer. Okay, so if there is another layer to show, then from the layer, the zero layer is always the role you search for. The first layer out is the first inherited role. If there is another layer beyond that, there will be points on that particular display. So notice here you can see the black hole around the human resources specialist. Okay, so if you look very close, you will see that black hole is not a halo here, right? It's a set of points, each point representing an inherited role or privileges. So you could expand that human resources specialist and look at its second level inheritance. Now I will just warn you, if you do that, this graphic will get too big for the system to display in a single frame, and you will have to go in a search of the human resource specialist role, or if you can see the human resources specialist role, you will have to navigate back to the human resource manager to see that part. There just only so much space on a display, and that's what happening then. Okay, so then we have the interacting with the visualization. So you can interact with the visualization using certain tools. Notice that here we have highlighted the last tool. It looks like a sight bull's eye, but that's not what it is. It's a magnifying glass, and if you turn the magnifying glass on and scroll across the graphic, it will magnify the portion of the graphic that one magnifying glass is setting over. So they have magnified human resources specialist, and now you can plainly see those points that represent that inheritance hierarchy. So if you were to scroll further left, you do see the predefined roles of the privileges. So other icons, we can make the pictures bigger or smaller using the plus and the minus, and we can search for the items on the page using the real magnifying glass that runs the search. So the slide bull's eye is the magnifying glass that you can use to make portions of the picture bigger. So you can also change the way the role present by the clicking on either of the items in the toolbar next to the the magnifying glass. Okay, so you can change it back to a particular display, or you can set up your own display. You can also click on item in the legend and remove them from the picture if they are not of the interest. So if you are not interested in the predefined role or privilege, if you click on them in the ledger, they will grayed out in the ledger and they will disappear from the display. This is about the interacting with the visualization. So moving ahead, we have the navigator simulation. So the navigator simulation, when you pick a role and ask to simulate the navigator, it will show you a menu. Now all of Oracle's cloud application have a maximum size menu. There is only so much that's in the menu if you implement every single offering. The menu is only so big, so when we simulate the navigator, once you have selected a role, we will show you one of two views. The first view will show you everything that can be displayed in the menu across all over the offering, and the item that are offered by the roles you have in your display will show as menu item that are unlocked. Okay, so the note you can notice here, the plan configuration and benefit administration, there is a no padlock. So that means that role that we are looking. Okay, sorry, disconnected. Okay, so just click on the selection and it will give you a list. Okay, so let's moving ahead. We have the role comparisons. So role comparisons, when you compare two roles of any types, you can identify the difference and privileges, data security policies, and inherited roles, or you can identify the ones that are the same. You are going to start with the first row and you are asking to do a comparison. So when you are asked to do the comparison, it will ask you what is the role you want to compare to. When you select the second role, it will show the comparison, both roles, and displaying all of the privilege that those roles carry. If a role provided that privilege, there will be a green check mark under that role. Okay, so if a role does not provide that privilege, there will be a red X in the place of green tick mark, and it will work both ways depending on whether it's a role 1 or role 2. It will simply show you which one provides the role and which one doesn't. And again, you do this by using compare roles of the security console. You can do that from the first role. Notice here in the compare, it will ask you to what second role do you want. Okay, in the picture here you can see that what second role do you want it. And if you are displaying the role in a graphic, if you right click on the role, there will be a compare selection. There have the same result. Okay, so moving ahead in the review of the role assignment. So up the above, there is a box where you can expand it towards. You can expand towards roles, or you can expand towards users. If you use users, it will show all of the users that have been provisioned, the role in the center and as blue diamonds, and each user will be identified by their user ID. So if you expand towards roles, of course it will show the role inheritance hierarchy. Okay, then we have the compare users. So you can't compare users as well as roles. Works the same way. Identify the first user to compare, then identify the second, and you can look to see which access each user has and what access is missing from the other user. Again, red X and green checks, it will show the type, the artifact's name. First user, second user will either have a green check mark or a red X. Okay, moving ahead, the conclusion of the security console. So in summary, the security console is a single administrative intuitive interface for the security management. It provides for a single global view of users, roles, and privileges, either graphically or in a list. So it enables you to visualize role hierarchy and focus on area of the interest. It also makes it easier for you to configure security to meet your business needs through, at least in a part, the ability to create predefined role, make a copy of them, and then edit the copy to create your custom roles. Okay, so it also allow you to create roles from the scratch if you wish, but again, I would take that carefully and make sure that the role you need to create from the scratch is fairly small. Otherwise, I would recommend you do copy of predefined role and edit the copy. That's going to be much easier and probably faster in the performance. Okay, so let's go ahead in the application and create a new job role. Okay, so here we will creating a job role for from the scratch. So this job role will be authorized to manage work structure only. A custom job role is needed because the predefined job role has duties associated with it. So in that, the enterprise does not want to grant to its user. Okay, so you have to log in as a HR specialist here. Then we have to go to the navigator, and then we have to go to the tools. Okay, here you have to find the security console. Here you can see all the categories we just saw in the slide. Here you can see the roles, right? So for the creating role, here you can see two options. For the comparing roles, you have compare role button here, and for the creating one, you have the create button. Let's click on the create. Here we have to give the role name. Let's give Fusion Workforce. Okay, then here we have to give the role code. Using workforce structures admin job role. Okay, then we have the role category here. So here you can see the abstract roles, the duty roles, the abstract roles, duty roles. These are the common, these are from the CRM. Then we have in the financial and with the GRC, right? So here we have to go to the HCM job roles because we are creating the job. So I'm going to select here HCM job role. Okay, then we have to click next. If you want to give any kind of description for this role, you can give here. I'm just going to click on the next. So we have to create the function security policies here. Let's create this. Mm, approve transactions privileges. Here it is, approve transaction privileges. Okay, then we have to go click on the next option here. Here you can see the data security policies. So basically this page is a read only unless enable edit or data security policies is set to yes on the roles tab of the security console administrative page. Okay, so I'm just going to click on the next, and then we have on the role hierarchy page. So here you can see the two mode, show graph, and right now it's in the table view. So let's change into the graphic. Okay, here you can see that. Let's click on the add role option. Okay, so here we have to search workflow. Okay, workforce structure. Structure management duty. Here it is. Let's add to the role membership. And then close it. Okay, here it is. Okay, so let's okay, so here you can see the information, okay, which we added here. Okay, let's change into the table view again, and then I'm just going to click on the next. Here I'm not going to add anything. Okay, here it's a summary page. Okay, so I'm just going to click save and close here. So let's confirm. Okay, so let's search for the new role here in the security console to confirm it was created or not. Here it is, we just created the Fusion workforce structure admin job role. Okay, so that's how you can create the job role. Same as if you want to create another roles, you have to just click on the create role option, and in under the role category you can select your role type. If you want to create the abstract role, you select the abstract role here. If you want to create the duty roles, you can select the duty roles here. And if you want to create the job role, just like we created here for the HCM, you can select the HCM job role. For the HCM, select the HCM human capital management, because we don't have to give data access, we directly assign these role to the users, right? This is the most unique and important part of the human capital manage HCM product. Here also, if you belongs to some other module, there is a financial CRM, and also there is a common abstract duty and job role here. You can also select these when you trying to create the roles here. Okay, and here you can create, from here you can create your user. You have two options, compare user and add user account. Just click on it. Here you have to give the user category. Okay, you have to give your user's first name, the last name, the email ID. For example, let's say Hope Mark. The email is not mandatory, so I'm not giving it here. And the username is automatically populated. Here you have to fill the password. Make sure you fill unique password. Okay, and then you can add your roles from here. This role we just created. Okay, let's click done. So this is how you can create your user and assign the role to the user which you created. Okay, then you have to just save and close. So that's how you can create your user, your roles, and assign the roles to the user. So this is all about today's session. I hope everything is clear to you. Thank you so much for giving your time.